What if Nazi Germany had come just one step away from building the atomic bomb, but tripped over a simple scientific error? In a war fueled by ambition and terror, Hitler's scientists dreamed of unlocking the power of the atom. They had the brains, the resources, and the will. But one crucial misunderstanding, a flaw in a single material, doomed their nuclear dreams. This is the true story of the German Graphite Myth, where science, secrecy, and ego changed the course of history. It began in 1938 in a quiet laboratory in Berlin. German chemists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann bombarded uranium with neutrons and discovered something unexpected. The atom had split in two. Their colleague Lisa Meitner, an Austrian physicist exiled for being Jewish, realized what this meant: nuclear fission. She and her nephew Otto Frisch calculated that the energy released was enormous, far greater than any chemical reaction known. Germany at that moment had discovered the key to atomic energy, and the world would soon follow. When war erupted in 1939, Hitler's regime saw the potential of this new science. The Reich Research Council established a secret Uranverein, the Uranium Club, a team of physicists tasked with weaponizing fission. Among them were some of the brightest minds in Germany: Werner Heisenberg, Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker, and Kurt Diebner. Their goal was clear: to harness atomic energy before their enemies could. But beneath their confidence lay confusion, politics, and competing egos. Heisenberg, already famous for his uncertainty principle, was chosen to lead the project. He believed that a chain reaction could be sustained inside a reactor, what they called an Uranmaschine or uranium machine. If successful, it could power cities or destroy them. But to achieve it, the Germans needed two critical components: pure uranium and a moderator, a material that slowed neutrons enough to sustain fission. Their choice of moderator would decide the fate of the program. The Americans and British, working in secret, chose graphite as their moderator. But in Germany, scientists dismissed it as useless. Their tests had shown that graphite absorbed too many neutrons, making it impossible to maintain a chain reaction. They turned instead to heavy water, a rare form of water that could only be produced in quantity at a hydro plant in occupied Norway. That decision would prove disastrous. Why did they reject graphite? Because the graphite they tested wasn't pure. Tiny traces of boron in their samples absorbed neutrons, skewing their results. Unbeknownst to them, American scientists like Enrico Fermi and Leo Szilard purified graphite to perfection, and it worked. While the Allies moved forward, Germany chased a mirage born from bad chemistry. In the winter of 1942, Heisenberg's team built their first experimental reactor in Leipzig. It was a strange device: layers of uranium cubes suspended in heavy water, all enclosed in a spherical aluminum tank. The setup leaked, overheated, and finally caught fire, destroying the experiment. Still, Heisenberg insisted success was near. The SS, impatient for results, began asking whether the project could deliver a weapon before the war's end. Heisenberg hesitated. He claimed that building a bomb required several tons of uranium-235, far beyond Germany's resources. Some historians believe he deliberately exaggerated the difficulty to avoid giving Hitler the bomb. Others argue he simply miscalculated the physics. Either way, his uncertainty bought the world precious time. Meanwhile, the Allies weren't taking chances. British intelligence launched Operation Gunnerside, a daring commando raid to sabotage the heavy water plant at Vemork, Norway. In February 1943, under the cover of darkness, Norwegian resistance fighters blew up key pipelines and destroyed production tanks. The attack crippled Germany's heavy water supply and ended their reactor dreams for good. The most critical resource in their nuclear program was gone. By then, the Allies had already begun their own massive effort, the Manhattan Project. While Heisenberg's team struggled with kilograms of uranium, American engineers refined tons. Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, and Hanford worked around the clock with almost unlimited funding and manpower. The contrast was staggering. Germany's nuclear effort had fewer than 100 scientists. America's had over 120,000 workers spread across 3 continents. Inside Germany, the Uranium Club fractured. Heisenberg and Diebner clashed over leadership and methods. The army wanted quick results. The scientists demanded more time. As the war turned against Germany, funding and supplies dwindled. Even the scientists began to doubt whether their research would ever see daylight. Still, Heisenberg persisted. He and his team moved to a cave in southern Germany where they built their final reactor, B8, from uranium cubes hung inside a tank of heavy water. It was crude but functional. When the Allies captured the site in April 1945, they found it half-assembled. Had it run just a few more months, it might have achieved criticality, but not enough to make a bomb. The Allies realized how close they had come only after seizing the scientists. In a secret mission called Operation Alsos, US and British intelligence teams swept across Europe capturing nuclear materials and personnel. They wanted to know, how far had the Nazis truly gone? The answer came at Farm Hall, a British estate where 10 captured German scientists were held and secretly recorded. The transcripts revealed their shock when they heard the US had dropped an atomic bomb on Japan. Heisenberg couldn't believe it. He miscalculated the critical mass by a factor of 10, insisting such a weapon was impossible. When he finally realized his mistake, he spent the night pacing the floor, repeating the calculations aloud. The bomb he thought couldn't exist had already ended a war. It was genius, pride, and error colliding in one tragic moment. The Farm Hall recordings also showed something else: moral relief. Most of the scientists expressed disbelief, even admiration, but few regret. Heisenberg said he was glad they hadn't built it first. Von Weizsäcker suggested that if Germany had succeeded, they would have used it. The Americans, he implied, had used it for peace. History would not agree. In truth, the German nuclear effort never came close to producing a weapon. They lacked not only materials, but unity, scale, and political will. Hitler's regime distrusted theoretical science, branding it Jewish physics because of Einstein. As a result, critical talent fled Germany, minds like Meitner and Beatty, who later joined the Allied effort. Germany had crippled its own intellect long before Allied bombs ever fell. Ironically, Heisenberg's failure may have saved millions. Had Germany mastered nuclear fission first, the course of World War II would have changed forever. London, Moscow, or Washington might have vanished in nuclear fire. Instead, the bomb became a weapon of the victors, and the world entered a new, uneasy age. Sometimes, history turns not on courage or genius, but on a single flawed experiment. Decades later, scientists re-examined the graphite myth. They recreated the original experiments using graphite with boron impurities and confirmed Heisenberg's error. If Germany had purified its graphite like the Americans did, their reactors might have worked. It was an error of chemistry, not physics, one that saved the world. A microscopic impurity had altered the fate of nations. The myth also revealed something about human nature. Under pressure, even great minds can make simple mistakes and refuse to question them. Heisenberg's reputation protected his conclusions. No one dared challenge him. In a dictatorship where dissent meant death, science bent to authority. The result was failure disguised as certainty. After the war, Heisenberg returned to academia, helping rebuild Germany's scientific community. He denied ever wanting to build a bomb, claiming he sought only peaceful nuclear energy. Historians still debate his motives. Was he a moral resistor or merely a cautious opportunist? The truth, like the atom, remains divided. Other members of the Uranium Club faded into history. Kurt Dibner continued research under the Allies' supervision, while von Weizsäcker pursued philosophy and politics. Their legacy became a mirror for Germany itself. Brilliant, ambitious, but forever stained by ideology. None were prosecuted for war crimes. Their failure had made them harmless. The heavy water plant in Norway became a symbol of quiet heroism. The saboteurs who destroyed it in 1943 prevented Hitler from gaining the one resource his scientists desperately needed. The mission's success remains one of the greatest acts of resistance in modern history. Without it, Germany might have achieved critical mass within a year. Courage had done what science could not. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the Manhattan Project succeeded beyond imagination. When the first test, Trinity, exploded in the New Mexico desert, the light was brighter than the sun. America's atomic scientists, Many of them refugees from Nazi persecution, watched in awe and dread. They had finished the race Germany had started. The age of nuclear weapons had arrived, and with it, an unending moral shadow. For Germany, the dream of atomic power ended in rubble. Their last uranium stockpiles were seized by the Allies. Their reactors dismantled. The Uranium Club's research was catalogued, studied, and eventually declassified. What remained was a cautionary tale of genius misled by arrogance and ideology. A story where one impurity outweighed an empire's ambition. Modern historians view the German nuclear project as both a failure and a warning. It shows how science cannot thrive without openness, collaboration, and truth. Even the most brilliant minds falter when blinded by nationalism or fear. Heisenberg's equations were flawless, but his assumptions were not. And in that difference lay the safety of the world. In later years, physicists who studied the myth often marveled at its irony. An entire war's outcome may have hinged on trace elements of boron measured in parts per million. The smallest impurity in graphite prevented the largest catastrophe in human history. It's proof that sometimes the universe itself seems to intervene. Or perhaps, humanity was just lucky again. Today, the German graphite myth remains a subject of fascination among historians and scientists alike. It's a reminder that progress depends on humility, and that error, however small, can shape destiny. The failure of Nazi physics preserved the balance of power and gave the world time to reflect. But it also opened the door to a new moral question. If science can create such power, who deserves to wield it? That question still haunts every laboratory today. In museums, fragments of Heisenberg's failed reactor still exist, silent witnesses to ambition's limits. Tourists gaze at uranium cubes suspended by steel wires, relics of a dream that never ignited. They look harmless now, like toys from another age. But behind the glass lies a chilling thought: how close we came to a very different world. One where the swastika might have cast its shadow beneath the mushroom cloud. History often celebrates victory, but forgets the role of failure. Germany's defeat in the atomic race was not fate, it was a consequence of flawed choices and flawed men. Had they questioned themselves sooner, the story might have ended differently. But their arrogance became humanity's salvation. Sometimes the greatest triumphs are the disasters that never happened. If you've made it this far, you've just uncovered one of the most pivotal what-ifs in human history, a story where a single mistake changed everything. The German graphite myth proves that truth, not power, decides the future. Subscribe to explore more untold chapters of science and war, the secrets, the miscalculations, and the miracles that shaped our world. Because sometimes history isn't written by the victors, but by those who failed just in time.